John, let's have another genuine voices conversation, shall we? Have you watched any good movies lately?
Well, I know what you're leading up to, because it was you that sent me the link the other day. Funny, that word movie doesn't come easily to my mind. I'm still old-fashioned enough to call it a film. Anyway, whatever. Yes, called Perfect Days. I thought you were going to ask me about this.
What's it about?
Well, good question. Outwardly, on the face of it, it's about a Japanese, I think, toilet cleaner in is it one of the big cities, Tokyo, I suppose. A single man who lives alone, and it showed him, started off asleep and getting up in his little, very simple, modest flat, collecting his things and going to work and doing his work, and followed him throughout his day, where he went, had his meals and came home at night. The next day the same, and the next day the same. And then there were a few little upsets. His niece obviously quarrelled with her family and came to live with him, a sweet little girl, who they were happy together. And then Mum came to fetch the daughter home, and I rather lost the plot then. I think the gist of it was, and perhaps this is what the aim of the film was, to show us how he retained his composure throughout what could have been a rather upsetting time. So I think that was the theme of the film, that to put it in my own sort of language, he was a man who tried to live in the present.
You said there's a sort of a surface theme. What's the deeper theme then? I think you've alluded to it.
Well, I suppose in modern language, you could say mindfulness, which in my language is more just being present, but it adds up to the same thing.
I'm completely with you there, John. So most films have a plot. What would you say was the plot?
You do ask me difficult things, Phil. You like these sort of questions. I'm not so comfortable on them.
It's a trick question, John, because there isn't a plot. So the main theme, I completely agree with. What do you think was the, shall we say, the deeper theme behind the film?
I think the deeper theme would be what's called these days mindfulness, which in my language is more summed up by being present, but it comes to the same thing. But it is, I think, the same thing.
Give me an example in the film, John, where he expresses this, let's call it mindfulness.
Well, it's really throughout the film, but the film shows where it seems to be successful and a period when it wobbles somewhat, because while he's being very mindful, his young niece turns up, a sweet little girl, early teenage girl, and says she's run away from her family. And so they settle down together, and she comes to work with him, and they sort of happy together. But then Mum appears to fetch her home. And here I rather lost the plot of the film. It was all a bit too subtle, really, for me, the expressions on this man's face. Well, perhaps that was meant to be the point of it. I don't really know.
Well, talking about the expressions on his face, it was really very remarkable. When he first woke up in the morning in his simple apartment, and then he stepped outside his apartment front door, what did he do?
Well, he always looked up and looked at the weather, had a smell of the fresh air. Then he went to a dispensing machine and put in a coin and brought out a can of coffee. Instead of boiling the kettle and making it at home. I thought that was, wow, was this modern life? Anyway, that was his breakfast.
That's so good. That's so funny, John. It's great. Yes, modern life, eh? But it reminded me of you. What do you do when you come out of the house and pause before you come into church at 5 o'clock in the morning?
I always instinctively consider the weather. Look at the sky, very usually, yes. Yes, a little later on when I get up the hill and there's a convenient place where I can bend over backwards. Yes, I love to spend a few minutes gazing at the stars. Or this morning there weren't any stars, but I did it just the same, gazing up at the clouds. Yes, I really consider that almost as important as meditation. I think it's a wonderful way of connecting with the greater world.
I see a lot of similarities between you and the toilet cleaner.
Yes, well, there were, yes.
So, what other little? I can prompt you because I have a few up my sleeve, so to speak. But what other sort of commonalities did you find with him, Hirayama?
Well, the commonalities were very obvious. I'll divert a little bit and say that we watched the film. It's a 2-hour film, watched in 2 parts. Watched the first hour, and after the first hour, I was with a companion watching it also, and she asked, "Did you like it?" I remember I didn't answer straight away. I didn't say yes. I thought a bit, and then I said, well, I'm not disturbed by it. I'm comfortable with it. That's right, I'm comfortable with it. I wouldn't say I like it. And then the second half, when this little drama developed, I didn't feel comfortable with it. And I'll tell you why not. Because although he, and with his character and the way he was playing his part, was totally valid, genuine. I couldn't fault it really. I recognised that it wasn't me, because I would have, because with my emotional character, my half-Russian upbringing and all that, I would have reacted more emotionally to it. With this little drama of losing my little friend. And the mother was very nice, but obviously this man had I suppose she was his sister, I couldn't quite get it right, but anyway, there was obviously a family love between them, but they were in a rather uncomfortable situation. They'd separated. Anyway, they did hug, but it was a very sort of reserved sort of hug. I wouldn't have hugged like that, but anyway, they did their best. And that was when I diverged from the film, because it's... well, I know there are people, plenty of people like that, and God bless them. I'm not critical of it, just recognise it, that I'm really not from that stable. And I do actually, it verges on a greater theme, because I'm a little bit suspicious of people, of anyone really, who has the answer to spiritual life. You know, the world's full of people who say, do this and do that and be mindful, and a whole string of things. I mean, I've said it myself, be present, ha, 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 and end of your problems, ha, ha. But life isn't like that. Life always puts a spanner in the works or throws something at you. And, you know, these things work when everything's okay, but what about things aren't okay? And there may be some ultra-holy people who can ride through the world without a ripple on the surface, but I'm not in that category. And I suspect that not many people are either. And I think it's more honest to be an honest failure than a pretend success.
Everybody likes an honest failure.
On safer ground there.
I think we're both on safer ground, John. I have something in common. with him anyway. I was once a professional toilet cleaner. That was my very first full-time paid job. They gave me a brush after a while. And there are the similarities, I think, between him. His name is, I think it's Hirayama. I should give him proper shout out. Yes, Hirayama. What did he like to do at lunchtimes?
Oh, he watched football, didn't he, on the television? He went into a cafe.
That was in the evening, but what did he do at lunchtimes?
Oh, I know. Yes, he sat in the park, and he liked to look up at the trees overhead and took a photograph. He was very technical, for sort of a modern tech chap, wasn't he? Had all the equipment, and yeah, he looked up at the lovely trees. Yes, I liked that part of him. I could connect with that. Except he took a photograph, I wouldn't have done that, but I don't have one of these clever phones. But, and then there was a girl there, and sitting, and again, in a very sort of mindful, laid-back, rather, well, not emotive way, he and the girl exchanged smiles, and oh, and there was something else. In one of the toilets, I liked this bit. You know how one can, if you're lonely, or just for fun, you can, you know, do the game of noughts and crosses. There was a bit of paper tucked into a corner of one of the toilets, and someone had made the framework and made a nought in, and you see, and he recognised this, so he put in a cross, you see. And each day he went to look at this bit of paper, and gradually the thing filled up. He never met the person that did it, but you see, I like this very much because, see, the great loves of our lives are not always successes, are they? They're often don't really come down to earth. They remain in this ideal world where you never actually meet the person. It's in the. I won't use a grand word like spirit. I'll talk of the fairy world.
They only met in the ether on a piece of
paper in a toilet. Yeah, I like that. That was romantic. That's up my street.
Well, you did point out he did like to take photographs, as you say, of the trees in the light. It wasn't with a modern camera though, it was with a 30-year-old Canon film camera which he had to have developed and then collect at the weekend.
Oh, you noticed that, yes, that passed me by, yeah.
And there's a word for it, believe it or not, in Japanese, this appreciating the patterns, the fleeting patterns in the trees. It's called komorebi. Komorebi sounds like a food, but it doesn't. It means literally sunlight filtering through the leaves of trees. And I thought you would like that.
Because it's natural.
The other thing that certainly I found I had in common with him it was his like of music, his taste of when did he listen to music and what did he listen to?
Yes, that was something that again rather passed over me because I don't do that myself. I like silence. I don't feel any need to fill it with music, but he did. He got in his car and immediately switched on a tape. And at various times throughout the day he liked music. Yes, well, it didn't impact on me. I know some people do like that, and again, God bless them, it doesn't sort of affect me.
But his musical taste was really...
Yes, it was a bit strange, considering he was a Japanese man in Tokyo, because he played Western music, didn't he? Western pop music.
From the 70s.
Was it? I didn't recognise that, yes.
Patti Smith, Lou Reed, and who nicked one of his cassettes?
Oh yes, he had an assistant, and this was funny. This was really funny. he had a rather scatty assistant who had a girlfriend, and what happened? He was desperate for some money to take her out, and how did they all end up in the car together? I know, he needed a lift to be taken somewhere, and so they were all three of them in the car, and the cleaner gave this chap some money, so he was elated by that. He rushed off to find his girl and take her out, and then of course he had to phone and say he couldn't repay the money, so that was lost. But I think the cleaner expected that anyway. He took it in his stride.
But they all dived in his little car, his van, his toilet cleaning van.
She wanted to play one of his tapes and went off with it, yes. Yeah.
Stuffed it in her handbag. He took Hirayama to a record shop in a shopping mall and tried to persuade him to sell his 1970s cassettes because they were valuable. If you notice, in all of that exchange between him and his assistant pleading with him and the girlfriend in the car also, in the record shop with his pleading to sell the cassettes, Hirayama said absolutely nothing the whole time. And that reminded me of you.
Yes, I took that really without much comment. Perhaps being silent in crazy situations has become quite normal for me too these days. I do it quite naturally without thinking about it, so perhaps I took it without reacting to it, really. Yes.
What else did he love to do in the park? You said you're right, he took photographs of the...
Well, he had his lunch. Not always. He drank a pint of milk.
What did he see at the base of a tree?
Oh, yes, that was nice. I liked that bit. Yes, he saw a young seedling, and he very carefully dug it out. Yes, I liked that bit. And took it home where he had a number of plants, house plants. And he obviously took great care of his house plants. He had one of these sort of spray things, which he good idea, I should get one of those. And first thing every morning before he went to work, he looked after his plants.
I would endorse what you said at the beginning. There's a sort of, there's the surface narrative, you know, daily life of a toilet cleaner. But clearly there was this background hum of, you might call it mindfulness, you might call it presence. And I found it absolutely joyful.
Yes, I think you did. Yes, my reaction wasn't quite the same. But certainly the first half, again, before the drama really kicked in, as I repeat, I felt entirely comfortable with it. Which perhaps is an even more complimentary thing than saying I liked it. It had a reality about it. I think it was very good that I've done my share of toilet cleaning too, and I've always rather I like cleaning. Cleanliness is next to godliness, is an old saying. Thinking back, yes, to the years when I worked as a cook in a little cafe. No, I like cleaning, making things look nice again, clean.
I think that's a wonderful sequitur there, joined up thinking. When you were a cook at Roy's Cafe on Route 66, your days were pretty regimented in the same way as the toilet cleaner, wasn't it?
Yes, they were, yes. But I was happy. Yes, it was there at a very difficult time in my life. I was deeply, disturbingly depressed at the time. And it really saved me. Just simple work, just cleaning and...
In the same way, do you think Hirayama's job as a lowly toilet cleaner, or the monk of the toilets, saved him?
Well, I don't know anything about his background, Phil, but he was obviously a mature and intelligent man. Why was he working as a toilet maker? Well, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute, yes, wait a minute. Wasn't there a hint about that? He'd been married, hadn't he? What had happened? I suppose he'd separated from his wife. I can't remember.
There's clearly some backstory that we don't know fully, but he'd made a choice, hadn't he, for this simple life?
It would do a lot of people a lot of good. It would be enormously helpful to no end of people who are going crazy in their heads, overstressed over everything these days, to find work as a simple cleaner, a marvellous way of coming back to sanity. Yeah, this I recommend it.
There's another Japanese word which I've actually come across from a physicist, a Japanese physicist who's got a YouTube channel. I've heard him speak a few times. And the word is ikigai, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I-K-I-G-A-I, which is finding a reason for being, finding your meaning in life. And he sees his pursuit as a professional physicist is his ikigai, and he encourages everybody. He goes for runs in the park in Tokyo, and he encourages everybody at the end of his short 3-minute videos, ikigai, find your meaning and do it. And in a way, do you think Hirayama found his ikigai, his meaning, in his simple daily life?
Well, I wouldn't use any absolute word such as find. I'd rather say it may have helped him in that direction. This whole business of, whatever we call it, finding yourself or spiritual enlightenment or whatever, is not so simple. Well, I've got to be very careful what I say here. It's not so easily realized as we often think. And I often think that the reason God in his wisdom gives us 80-odd years to live is for a very good reason. At the school of life, we may try to squeeze it all into a few retreats and a few books, but life itself often extends the program longer than we think, extends the lessons longer than we expect.
Are you familiar with the story of Sisyphus?
Yes, I am. Yeah, that's quite relevant. He was, for some reason, he found himself with a big stone, trying to push a big round stone up a mountain. And I'm not sure if he ever reached the top. But anyway, I had a picture book when I was a boy of this man pushing this big stone up a hill. I can't remember what the caption was, but the meaning was obvious. Hard work. Well, is there a shortcut to this hard work? Can we avoid doing it? Well, again, see, here I get a bit suspicious of clever people who think they can. I'm not so sure. I think back to my own life. Aren't 88 years enough? I'm still learning every day.
Do you think Sisyphus was miserable?
If he moved it a few inches, he'd probably be chuffed. He'd think, great, I've done a good day's work.
A bit like a toilet cleaner. It gets dirty every day. He has to clean it the next day.
The very act of cleaning, you see, I like this because I was brought up and also in the school of meditation. One of the key exercises that we were given in my early days in the school of meditation in London was cleaning. And of course everything was done by hand, because the whole point of mindfulness is not to use a machine to get the job done quickly. It's to do it with full attention. So in a way, the slower and more meticulous the movements of the hand in order to achieve a result, the better. Polishing furniture, or using your fingernail to scratch a bit of dirt off a surface or something like that, are marvellous exercises. I remember once doing this exercise at home, and we had some meditation students, and one woman was cleaning windows. There was a speck of dirt on the window, and I remember watching her with her fingernail scratching at the dirt. She did it very consciously, and I was beside her watching. I remember that. How many years ago? Look, I'm recounting it as though it happened yesterday. It was a moment of supreme consciousness, both for her doing that, and I was watching her. Yeah, so it is. Some such simple things. Beautiful, out of this world. That's sublime beauty. Yes, I can still hear the scratch, faint scratch on the glass.
Well, if indeed cleanliness is next to godliness, I reckon the Tokyo toilet cleaner was close to God.
Well, I'm sure in those moments when he was fully attentive, that is exactly what happens. He knelt down and did it with his hand, scraping the inside of the toilet bowl. And he did it beautifully. And his whole action, and the scene on the screen was beautiful in those moments.
I was a bit worried in the first day, for sure, unless I wasn't paying attention. He didn't wear gloves.
I think he did. I think he wore rubber gloves, yes. I've never seen such sort of super high-tech toilets.
Impressive.
Impressive, yes.
Yes, very enjoyable film. Do you remember the very last scene? And he's in his van, and he's just driving.
Yes, and smiling.
And he puts on a cassette tape, and it's Nina Simone. And as you say, what was his expression?
Smiling very sweetly to himself. Yes, at the play of life. Well, yes, I could fully live with that. I suppose, yes, I would have made more of I personally, if I'd been in his position, would have reacted with a bit more drama to the situation, but that's just me.
Well, if it was Albert Camus cleaning the toilets, he would have said, we must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Really, that's an interesting thing to say. Well, I think he probably was. I know a bit about heavy weights, and it can be very satisfactory just carrying them a few steps, can't it? Pushing a wheelbarrow that's too heavy, bit by bit. Yes. It really hurry. Yeah, doing things fast in a hurry. Yes, it isn't always the answer, is it?